Mark Noble getting subbed on in that amazing clash between United and West Ham, which, United did end up winning. Getting subbed on in literally the 94th minute, cold. I don't know if he was warming up. I think he was just sitting there, and David Moyes went, "It's your time to shine, son." Came up, took the penalty, obviously. You know how it goes. David De Gea, who's not a good penalty saver by any stretch of the imagination.
Famously.
I think a stat that I heard, and don't quote me on this, he hasn't saved the last 8 to 10 penalties. It might be even more, might stretch back further.
I think that's, if you include the entire penalty shootout against Villarreal from the Europa League final, it's probably double that.
Yeah, so for me, I wanted to know, it's reminiscent of the Euros. England, Italy, Bukayo Saka taking one, obviously, but then Rashford and Sancho getting subbed on to take it. What is this obsession with turning to the bench in this critical moment of taking a penalty and going, "Hey, your first kick is going to be the penalty"?
I think it is a classic example of data being used in football without context around it. So there was a big study that was done about the success of penalty taking in shootouts and in tournaments, and they found that players who had played less minutes and who'd been subbed on in extra time were more likely to score than players who'd been running around for 120 minutes when you go to the shootout, which makes sense. But I don't think there was a separate data set for players who literally haven't had a kick of the ball yet, actually stepping up to the spot. And I also think this is maybe somewhere where football could improve in terms of how it prepares its substitutes.
Yes.
Like if you look at the NFL, the kickers, if they're coming on for a last-minute field goal, they actually have a little net that they kick the ball into on the sideline so that
special
they can
teams,
just get the
right?
feel of it. Yeah, exactly. And this is a special team substitution if you're bringing on Mark Noble to take literally one kick to get a point. So it would be an interesting place for a home team to invest and maybe make that facility only available to their players and not the away side. But not even for these penalty takers, but just for attacking players that are coming on to try and influence the game and score a goal. Just to have a few practice shots before you get on the pitch. It doesn't have to be on the sideline. Could be, down somewhere in the depths of the, underground complex that they have at all these stadiums. Just a bit of AstroTurf and a goal to kick the ball at. You say you're coming on in 5 minutes. Run down the tunnel, have a few shots and come back. And it just heaps pressure on you when you're coming on just to do that, when you wouldn't have been involved otherwise. David Moyes stood by his decision saying Noble's got a better penalty record than anyone else on the team. But the spotlight is on you in a way that it isn't quite if you're already a member of the starting 11 when you come on just to take a spot kick.
And what does it do, do you reckon, to the psychology of the 11 players on the pitch? That the gaffer is saying, "I don't trust any of you who have played the entire game to take this last kick." And if I'm Declan Rice, which I'm not, the only thing Declan Rice about me is that I've eaten rice most of my life. But if I'm the captain, I'm taking the ball, putting it down, and taking the shot. I've played the whole game. I have a feel for it. I have a feel for the occasion. Like, how does a team respond after the coach has just gone, "I don't trust any of you"?
It's an interesting one. I think it's going to be an easy one for Moyes to explain. You just say, look at the stat sheet. But I would be a little bit annoyed if I was Declan Rice. He was already getting himself into the zone. He kissed the ball for luck, and then Noble swoops out of nowhere to take the spot kick from underneath him. I think that does create a few issues in the dressing room, especially when Noble maybe doesn't command the respect in the West Ham dressing room that he used to. If he was some giant of the club, then you can't really question it. If it was United subbing Ronaldo on to take a penalty, I don't think anyone would be saying anything. But he's on his way out. He's arguably not good enough to play for West Ham anymore, and he's not starting games. He probably should be in the Championship by now. It doesn't sit as well, and I am sympathetic towards him because I thought it was a great save from De Gea. It wasn't a terrible penalty. But yeah, I think there would be some ill feeling if Declan Rice, is that kind of personality.
Let's think about the reverse then, because the reverse has been done as well. I mean, you think about Louis van Gaal subbing on Tim Krul for Jasper Cillessen for Holland. You think about Eduard Mendy getting subbed off for Kepa. it's not as controversial maybe when a goalkeeper gets subbed during these moments because they're penalty specialists, and when it pays off dividends. If it doesn't work, you don't really hear about it as much. Why do you think that is? Because I have my own theory that maybe it's, as a goalkeeper in a penalty situation, you're not expected as much to save it, but as the person striking the ball, you're expected to put it in the back of the net.
I'm sure it is still painful for the keepers who get replaced in shootouts. But I do like the keeper sub because it's a disruptive thing, a substitution. And a penalty kick is all about stability and, replicating the same motion and the same technique that you've practiced over and over again. Whereas trying to save a penalty is, in my view, a little bit more chaotic, and it's less reliable, and there's no expectation of success, as you say.
Yeah.
So that kind of energy coming straight off the bench and just trying to get in this, kick taker's face, bouncing up and down the line, doing whatever you can to distract and try and force an error, I think is more effective than bringing somebody on cold who has to make a very precise motion and replicate, what they've practiced perfectly without a warm-up.
I just felt for Mark Noble because when he was coming on, he didn't look confident. And this is just someone in Australia watching it in bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was shattered when Luke Shaw handballed it, and then when I saw they were bringing Mark Noble, I just looked at his face, and I promise you, and this is not just for content or whatever the hell this is, I went, he's saving.
I felt the same way.
I believed with every part of my body. I was like, we've won. And we'll end this section on this. Would he have asked to come on, or would David Moyes have turned and gone, you've got a good record, time to step up?
I think this was Moyes led, I would imagine. I don't think you would be so presumptuous as a player to say it's the 94th minute of the match. You got to sub me on, boss. I got to take this.
Yeah.
I can imagine you saying that at an Eltham Eagles game. If you're on the bench.
Look, my record speaks for itself. Although this season was a bit rough. I had a rough patch. I missed a couple, but for the most part, I've done good from the spot. No, but I wouldn't. I might. You know what? I would.
You probably would.
Yeah, because when the numbers don't lie.